Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about everything home and healing. And I've got the whole screen, which is interesting. We've not done this before. Anyway, I hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Got to celebrate Thanksgiving the best way that you do. And today we're going to be talking to Reverend Debbie Grace again. And she told me they had snow. So I don't know where you are in the world, but this is California. And right now, my thing says it's going to be 74 and sunny, and I'm always cold. But anyway, I'll be going out and sitting in the sun for a little while after this is over because it's warmer outside than it is inside my house. But Devi got stuck in the snow today. They got their first snowfall. She lives in the mountains, and they got some snow. So she's excited, and it's beginning to look a little bit like Christmas for her. And so, yes, we're going to be talking about some very interesting topics. She's always great to enlighten us into some things that I don't know that we think about very much. I know she always challenges me, and that's what we've got going on. So, let's see. We are going to be talking about Christmas pretty soon. I'll put together some Christmas tips and decorating for Christmas one of these weeks coming up. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions of things that you're stuck with or you want to know about, somewhere out there I've got a video that's called Decorate for Christmas. And we did like 10 different trees. It was really cool. I don't know if it's still out there on YouTube somewhere or somewhere in the Ethernet. I'll have to go check that out because that might be really cool to have up again. But it's out there somewhere. And it was a lot of fun making it. We just had all different kinds of trees, different themes. And, I like to encourage people to be creative when you're putting together your tree. Uh, Years ago, I was at the botanical garden near me. They had these gorgeous leaves. And they had gilt around the edges. And I mean, there's some that you see that, the gold leaves, and those are okay. But these were way more interesting than those. I mean, those are nice. And I have some of those. But these had all kinds of rusts and golds and greens and, all my colors. And so I found them and I was like, I bought what I could. And at the time I had a little tree. So it was fine. I think I bought maybe 20 of them. Maybe it was 15. But I fell in love with them. I said, what am I going to do? I love these. So I found some other things to go with it. And that became my tree. And so it doesn't have to be traditional. It was a very untraditional Christmas tree. They have some very untraditional ones where you hang them upside down. We did some where there was on a wall, you can do like a flat Christmas tree. Maybe you have a small space. Tiny houses are the rage, right? So what do you do when you have a tiny house, and how are you going to put a big Christmas tree in it? So you do a two-dimensional Christmas tree, and you can use tinsel or lights and create the outline of a tree on your wall. And then you can take some tape or some little text and put your ornaments up within it. So that's a fun tool. And sometimes you don't need to have a big tree, It's great when there's little kids, but as we get to be older, it's like, do we want a big tree? Do we need a big tree? If it's just you, maybe there's nobody coming over. Maybe you're going over to other people's house. A friend of mine, she just posted she had a little tree. It was about 3 feet tall. She sits it on a little table. That's all she needs. Last year, I was a bit of Scrooge isn't quite right. I just didn't have any Christmas spirit. Scrooge means you didn't want to spend any money and you're cold, and I just didn't have any Christmas spirit. I wasn't taking it away from anybody. I just didn't have any. And so I went out and I just got a pre-made tree and I stuck my angel on top of it. And it was like a little 3 foot tree. And I'm like, that's good. I'm done. I don't know what I'm going to do this year. Hello, Mark. What's going on?
Not much since you mentioned Christmas trees. I thought I'd pop on because actually I went and on Thanksgiving we have somewhat of a ritual. So the day after Thanksgiving, me and my two nephews, 14 and 15-year olds, definitely give a big shout out to Langston and Julius and all in that space. But we went and grabbed the Christmas tree that mom keeps down in the basement area. So we went and grabbed the tree. That's where she stores it at. And we brought it upstairs, set it up, put on, it already comes with the lights attached, and put the stars up, made sure that the lights were untangled and all in that space. And I was actually talking to her earlier today because we have I guess that would be my second cousin or third cousin that is special needs and loves to put in some of the ornaments and all in that space. So she was actually gonna have that happen, maybe possibly today, because definitely Josh has been calling on a regular basis, trying to figure out when he can come over and he'll put on the ornaments and all in that space. So that's what's going on. I was thinking about that as you were talking about the weather, because we're actually having a mild day. I think it's supposed to be up in the 60s, but we did get down to some cooler temperatures in the lower 30s. I don't think we might have even hit around the
Oh,
high 20s and everything, but that wasn't on Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was definitely mild and everything, but definitely the
I
last
don't
couple of weeks.
understand that number. That doesn't compute with me. I just that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe in like January or February we
Yeah.
might get a low in the 30s at night when
And
I'm
that's what it was.
but
And this is when it was cold. Was in the nighttime. It wasn't during the daytime. I think during the daytime it might have been 40s or 50s, but definitely cold at nighttime. And even the apartment complex will send you a notice telling you to keep your water dripping so that the pipes don't freeze, and to definitely keep the heat on and do other things that are there to keep you protected and make sure that things don't explode or all in that space. So definitely they try to give you cautionary notes.
you leave the water dripping.
Yes.
Okay, so this is like such a little like my brain just exploded. Okay, because here in California, if you left something dripping, then you're like horrible because there's always a drought, and like you don't want that at all.
Right. But
That
here they don't want the pipes to freeze, so that is why the logic is that if you keep the water dripping, and I think it's supposed to be hot water, it will prevent the pipes from freezing. That is why they tell you to do that action, is to keep the faucet not a full flow, but just a soft drip and everything to stop the pipes from freezing. And that is the notion in the South. It didn't say it always worked, and I don't know even know if they do that in the Northeast, but that is the notion, that you keep the pipes dripping in order to keep the pipes from freezing, because that would be problematic as well.
okay, so Devi is having a hard time coming in. She says studio secure. I'm
Mhm.
gonna give her your phone number and maybe she can call you and
Okay.
I'll give you her phone number
Oh,
and you
she's here now. She
her.
just popped in.
Found it? Okay, cool.
She just popped in, even though she's not
Don't
on
you
camera.
love technology? It's great when it works.
Well, she just popped in. I was just waiting for her to get on the camera and everything. But I did see that she popped in because I see Rev. Oh, there we go. Now she's popping in. She's here. So let's bring in Reverend Devi and everything. She might have heard about these ideas as well. Reverend Devi, I was talking to Jeanette about the notion of letting the pipes drip, because here in the South we'll let the pipes drip in order to not have the pipes freeze, which apparently is a foreign concept to you folks in the West Coast, but it's something that we do here and all in that space. And the other thing we were talking about was ornaments, because I was saying that earlier today or last week, the day after Thanksgiving, I was spending 3 days with mom and with my brother and my two nephews and one of my cousins, and the well, it was actually the three of us, meaning myself and my two nephews. We went downstairs, grabbed the Christmas tree, and put up the Christmas tree. And I have a relative that is special needs that will probably do some of the ornaments. But the star is already up, the lights are already rotating, and the Christmas tree is
Oh,
in that space. So we did have it up, and mom was enjoying it because it is one of those that the lights flicker and it also rotates around a little bit as well. So she's enjoying it right now, even though she has
nice.
a little bit of an issue too, because her furnace. In the middle of the winter, you don't want your furnace to having problems, but she had some furnace issues, so she had to have that fixed on. I think it was yesterday she had to repair me. People come. So when I called her today, she was like, "Yep, I got heat. I'm feeling good. So don't have to deal with the furnace issues." But she did have to deal with it for a minute because there was a little bit of. We haven't had severe cold, but you definitely want to have your heat, no matter whether it's slight chilly or super cold and everything. So if she was
Yes.
pleased that she had the resources to get the furnace fixed, and the furnace is fixed now.
Got to stay warm. These
You gotta
basics,
stay warm and
life
everything.
essentials.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, before I turn it back over to you and all in that space and Jeanette, I also have to tease y'all because maybe y'all could talk about this because one of the other things that we did was we are game players, and I think I've told you this, Jeanette, this before. So we do sometimes Scrabble, we do other games, but our latest game is spinners. We love playing spinners, and my oldest nephew beat me. I think it was him that beat me twice and beat everybody else because it was me, my two nephews playing, except for the last game because the other nephew was a little bit cantankerous and decided he wanted to go off to sleep, and we're not going to stop him from sleeping. So it was the oldest nephew, mom, and my brother. 'Cause I only have the one brother. And everything. My mom, my brother, myself, and Julius playing. So it was the four of us playing in the game, and Julius won two of the games, and me and mom were battling for last place. But in the final game, me and mom were battling for first place.
Family
Mom was winning
time.
until the last hand, and Malik was like, "You haven't won the game yet, mom, because you still got one more hand to play." And I'm thinking to myself, "I'm 35 points down. There's no way I'm winning this game, mom. You're gonna win the game." But that's not the luck of the draw. The luck of the draw was that she had a horrible hand. She got like 40 points, and I hate to say this, Reverend Debbie, I stole the victory from mom. So mom got the lost the victory and all in that space. So definitely the fates were on my side, and mom was just glad to have fun competition and to have the camaraderie. So we were enjoying each other's company, even though I hate to say it, I wasn't a good son. I stole the victory from
No. Well, the traditions of
Stolen.
connection. That's
exactly.
what we love.
Exactly. That's what it's all about is the connections and being together and having that quality time
Hmm.
together. So like I said, I was up there
Hmm.
for managed to 3 days because we got up there Thanksgiving afternoon on Thursday and came back on Saturday afternoon. So it was about 2.5 days. Good 5 meals. I had about I think three breakfasts and two dinners. So it was definitely some good food that was had in all in that space. But I'll jump off, maybe jump out on later. But I knew you would come
Okay.
in, so you always have great conversation. So always enjoy
Thank
your energy,
you,
just like I
Mark.
enjoy Miss Chasworth as well. So I'm here to pound off and let y'all have y'all's conversation.
Mm.
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Yes, good to be back. The girls are at it again.
Indeed, indeed. And I don't know, there's so much we talk about. It's like, is there some place you want to start today? Is there anything that specifically you want to talk about?
Well, Mark was highlighting the tradition of the Thanksgiving holiday, that
Yes.
gratitude celebration. And so Jeanette and I had the great good pleasure of being out in nature on that feast day of gratefulness in the oaks and pines and canyons. So we communed with our relatives in the natural world, the tree people, the animals on the lands. It was a gorgeous location. And so as we move closer to winter, we're getting to the very end of autumn. And of course, every December, every tradition on the planet has their acknowledgement of the season of light. And it actually begins with the Stargate. That is December 12th. It's the 12/12 Stargate. That's in 11 days. And then it starts that progression into the winter solstice. So, what I love to share with people at this time of year is maybe a spiritual deepening of their relationship to these annual celebrations, these annual festivals, and these annual opportunities to commune deeper with consciousness and deeper with our own divinity inside of us and our love and appreciation for the blessings in our life. There's so many different ways that you can celebrate the holidays, and it doesn't have to be the traditional style that quote unquote you see all the other family systems participating in. And so we keep it very inclusive of that diversification and inclusion of what brings deeper meaning for individuals at this time of the year, because the holidays can be really a great source of joy, or they can also be really, really challenging. And I respect really both ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just talking before you came on. We were talking a little bit about Christmas trees and different ways to work with Christmas trees. And last year I didn't, I just went and got a little 3 foot fake one and I just put my angel on top and that was it. I didn't have any Christmas spirit. And I, decorating the house is usually the thing if I don't do anything else, that's how I celebrate, that's a big thing for me. And so it's really an important thing for me to do. And for me to not do that, that was, I just had zero spirit. So getting a small tree and just, it had some lights and it had, a couple acorns on it or something, but it was just like, yeah, it's done. Like I couldn't. So it's not, you know, there's a list that comes out on the day after Thanksgiving of all the things that have to be done, but what we have to do is the things that bring us joy. And there are times after a family member has died or maybe after a divorce, it may not feel good to be celebrating it. And then you really just have to show kindness to yourself of like, I don't have to do all this if I don't have any Christmas spirit. It's show the kindness of like, especially if it's your first Christmas without significant relative, friend, partner, whatever it is, it's going to feel very different. You have to recreate that holiday.
Well, the Christmas spirit is universal, and the season of light is universal. And what you're actually talking about is honoring our human energy levels of how much we can, quote unquote, do externally to honor this really special time of year. The 1212 Stargate is less known. It's on the feast day of Guadalupe. So if you're in Mesoamerica or in South America, they know the December 12th as the feast day of Guadalupe. Now, she showed up as the mother of the roses in the desert. So that symbology of how are roses growing out of the desert is the same principle of what Christ consciousness represents. It's bringing light where there is an absence of that radiance. It's bringing consciousness where maybe there has been an experience of shadow or forgetting or amnesia or some form of trial and tribulation on the human level. So this time of year basically reminds us that the light is born even inside of the darkness. The winter solstice is the longest night of the year. And that's when the sun king, solar king, is born to the divine mother. The goddess is pregnant. The winter solstice is the divine feminine in its peak expression. And so this is when that spark of divinity within us is renewed. So the external, right, light goes down because the days get shorter and shorter and shorter. And on the shortest day of the year, the longest night, the external light is at its low point here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's when everybody went into that deeper inner silence, went into that deeper presence of being with self, communing with self, having intimacy with self, and finding the divinity of the light within. The whole point of an external avatar, whether you call it Yeshua, or you celebrate Hanukkah, you celebrate the other messengers from the different traditions, or Kwanzaa. There's so many different lineages on the planet. The one thing that they all have in common is there is this original flame of light that we all are. And that is that universal truth. So sometimes in the modern world, these holidays get very commercialized and we forget those ancient roots of the original practices. So, like in Germany, the original tree was the great tree of life. So the Yule log and the great tree is Yggdrasil, which is that original luminosity of the connection between heaven and earth. So when they're putting candles on those trees in Germany, that was the stairway to heaven, quite literally. And the Yule log of the remembrance of how blessed we are by our other guides, luminous light, divine guides that come and gather with us as we go into these deep spaces of prayer and silence and contemplation. So winter solstice is huge meditation. The yogis teach summer solstice and winter solstice. If you're going to meditate on what you're asking to create or that expression of love in your life, these are your two big windows of the entire solar year. So it's all about context. And I'm more of a mystic, and I have that access to the ancestral studies. So we're bringing these old ways back with a modern flavor, right? So that you can harmonize with hanging out with the grandkids and the rest of the relatives, right? Who have maybe a more modern interpretation of the holiday. And yet there's always that opportunity to go back to your roots and go back to the ways that the ancient ones also upheld this seasonal time of year. If that translates, like you have more options than maybe you would normally know.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to me. People get very upset over this religion, that religion. There's a joke I heard years ago, and you can fill in the blanks, but the blanks are almost interchangeable. But you've got a line of people at St. Peter's Gate, and the first person said, so, what's your religion? And he tells them, he goes through his list of questions. What religion are you? Okay, you're fine. You go to room 12, but be very quiet as you pass room 8. The next person comes up. So what are you? They tell their religion. Okay, be very quiet. You go to room 10, but be very quiet as you pass room 8. Anyway, this goes on. So then the narrator, this comes in. He says, so what's the deal with room 8? And St. Peter says, shh. That's and you can fill in your blank here. They think they're the only ones here. And I think a lot of religions get that, we're the only ones, but it's fascinating how, to me anyway, how all of them really are blended. I mean, our Christian Christmas has a lot of pagan rituals in it.
Mhm.
And they did that to assimilate it. But, like you said, this is a universal truth of this is the darkest night of the year, and we're bringing in light to the planet. I mean, we are looking for light. We're looking to embrace that. And, I know some people who are very Christian, like, well, the Yule log is about witchcraft, and the Christmas tree is about witchcraft. And I'm like, okay, tell me that. I'm like, I want to hear your side of the story. And yet, and the thing with there's witchcraft and there's witchcraft, but a lot of the pagan stuff, this was just how the earth worked.
That's called earth-based spirituality, and it's not necessarily Wicca. So that's
Yeah.
human ignorance that tries to label things that they do not understand or they do not relate. These ancient traditions had earth-based respect, and there's a lot of commonality between Celtic shamanism, which is one of the oldest traditions of mysticism on the planet, and really in the first 600 to 700 years of Christianity, the practices of the Celtic shamans and the Celtic mystics partnered with the Christian mystics. They found the commonality between their traditions. So, like back in Pennsylvania, there's this, they call it the American Stonehenge, and you have the beautiful Irish Celtic chapel on one part of the property, and all of these huge stone megaliths, stone circles and stone arches and stone spirals, which is the geomancy and the relationship with nature's laws and the relationship with nature's principles. And so that's an intelligence of working with the electromagnetic fields of light within the body of the whole planet. So that could be a sadhu, a siddhi, a wise man, a wise woman, a medicine man, a medicine woman. They all talk to these different frequencies of light, but they don't necessarily identify with some human label that tries to like overgeneralize and put them into some category. These universal traditions that you see in every continent, I mean, it's like, come on, there must be something to it if people all over the planet are getting that this is a really important time to quiet the mind, to go into that space of stillness so that you can access that still small voice of your spirit and receive more of the signal from your heart. So much of us has been in the mental space or the cognitive, we call it the shoulders up. And when you build that fire in the hearth and you see that flickering, fire ceremony of the ancient ones before you in your tradition with your blanket, and your hot apple cider, and you're just in silence staring into the fire, you can receive messages from heaven. And you can receive messages from the universal love current that swims through the body of the whole planet, that swims through the body of the whole cosmos, the microcosm and the macrocosm. And then, the alchemists, they understood the principles of how do you go through internal transformation from lead into gold. So for a lot of people in December, you look at, okay, so what's the lead in my life? What's needing to transform or compost as all the trees are dropping their leaves and that winter frost comes in. Snow is a crystal. And sometimes when people experience that first snow, they were like, I'm surrounded by crystals of divine energy.
Wow.
And they used it as an opportunity to, how can I deprogram from my frenetic, hectic, external focused, human personality, human identity, and come back to the essential nature of my soul. And from there, give thanks for the fact that I am an embodied soul, that I journeyed from spirit into matter. And what do I need to remind myself from that I am consciousness to help my human be more creative, to be more inspired, to be more aligned with my highest truth. So it's the deep space of internal reflection that yields wisdom.
Winter itself forces us to slow down and
Yes.
go inside. It's cold outside. You don't necessarily want to be, if you're someplace it snows a lot, for whatever that looks like for you, you may not go outside as much just because it's, you have to de-ice the windshield, you have to shovel, you have to, it's like, well, if I wait, so maybe, I don't have to do it today. You might do more of your shopping all in one day, but and it's cold. So we really are drawn more towards, staying inside by the fire, staying curled up, doing more quieter activities. And it does, and the religious nature of the holidays, going to church on the holiday or even listening to some of the Christmas carols can be a very spiritual moment.
Mm-hmm. I welcome and embrace cross-cultural.
Mm-hmm.
And then the interfaith movement, coexist, is very popular. Ecumenical means you're inclusive of the diversity of people's spiritual paths, and having respect and honor for Hanukkah as much as those that honor winter solstice or Yule, as much as those that honor Christmas, as much as those that honor Kwanzaa, etc., etc., etc. There is that deep space of reverence for the different practices from that space of love and acceptance, and how important that is to give that love and acceptance to ourselves. So I can use the Feast Day of Guadalupe as a beautiful example of this partnership between cultures. And if you don't remember what was going on with that historical time on the planet.
I've never heard of the Feast Day of Guadalupe.
Well, the most spiritually traveled place on the whole planet is her shrine down in Mexico City. Millions and millions and millions and millions of people travel to go be with the Basilica of the Guadalupe. So when she arrived, she did not announce herself as the mother of Christ. At that time, there was this conflict between the colonialization of the Spanish that identified as Catholic and the Mesoamerican Aztec cultures that identified as the mystics of their indigenous people's practices. And at that time on the planet, there was tremendous conflict between the two different systems of relating to the divine, shall we say. I'm not even going to call them religions. And so when she showed up 3 times to Juan Diego, she had this cape of the stars, like she was embodied as a celestial or cosmic presence of love. She had all of the roses physically, all about her, but also roses coming out of the desert sand. That's a miracle. Okay, desert sand has no water. What are roses doing in the middle of the desert? The other principle is that she was dancing. She was spiraling and in her joy. And so the Aztec people did not feel threatened by, oh, this is a Christian, Madonna. They saw, oh, that is the Tonantzin, because literally where Guadalupe showed up was right on the temple, the property, right on the temple of Tonantzin. So that was the Aztec temple to the goddess. So the goddess shape shifts, right? The Aztec people knew her as Tonantzin. Now the Christians knew her as Mother Mary. The Divine Mother is seeing her children in a religious war, and that's unnecessary conflict. So now they refer to her as the Mother of Americas, which means that she was accepted by the Mexican culture and also accepted by the European culture, and they stopped their fighting of what name they were going to call her. No, she's Tonantzin. No, she's Mother Mary. So the arguing stopped, and she said, I am Mother. I am Universal Mother. And then they created this name for her, Her Lady of Guadalupe, Her Lady of the Celestial Stars. Now, when you go to service for Guadalupe on December 12th, which I have, it starts at 4:30 in the morning. And the Aztec dancers and all their regalia, they are doing their, whole procession into the Catholic churches that still honor those original practices. It's the one day of the year where the traditions overlap. So like your English services are like at 8 a.m. However, all the services are still in Spanish and in that indigenous dialect. And they have the mariachi bands and the whole, images of the goddess are on their clothes. In Santa Fe, I kid you not, they do the pilgrimage from the Basilica to the huge shrine of Guadalupe, and the whole image of the Divine Mother is this procession through all of Santa Fe. Wow. And huge displays of roses and flowers in honor of, the Mother of Light.
And this
so
is
when I saw that in Santa Fe, when I saw that in Santa Fe, I was like, this is it. This is the one day of the year where the Divine Mother is the prime focus on the whole planet. is the largest festival of the mother that we have in modern times. And so, yeah, services are at 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. And I'm like the only one there that like doesn't speak Spanish, so I don't understand a word of the invocations, in because no hablo mucho español, except I'm there to honor her in all capital letters because I know the original Gnostic mysteries and I know the original Essene traditions where the divine feminine had a tremendous presence of bringing in the illuminated ones, if that makes sense.
You said that we had our own Stonehenge, and I've never heard about it. So is that there's no legend around it, or is it just? I mean, I'm a California.
No, the gentleman who built it obviously had a lot of money. It's called Columcille. You can look it up. It's a historical place now. They had to bring in all these huge cranes. And he got his inspiration from the Isle of Iona. And he spoke to the guardians of the land. And so this is the tradition of stone circles that you'll see over in Ireland and Scotland and England, very similar to the Druids and the Celtic mystics. And so there's megalithic stone structures at multiple places on the property and labyrinths. And then you have the, Irish Catholic, shrine in the middle of it. With this huge stone in the middle, with the etchings of the rose line, the true Christ family lineage of Rosa Mystica. So I'm like, okay, they get it. And there was zero competition. So same principle of the overlap of the two religions being completely harmonious in this place called Columcille. And it's just gorgeous. It's freezing, when it's all in snow. But I've gone there on winter solstice and the land is all draped in the white blankets of powder, and it's surreal. You feel like you're in Scotland 3,000 years ago. It's magnificent. So I'm extremely eclectic. I'm inclusive of all these different paths because the whole point is bringing the heavens and the earth together, quite literally, inside of our bodies and, in our world. That's the whole promise. Keep your word.
Reverend Debbie, speaking of which, I was telling definitely Jeanette earlier that there's going to be a Lama speaking here at the Hayti Center that I work at and all in that space. So he's actually going to be speaking here in about 4 hours, but he's actually going to talk about a lot of what you've been talking about because Lama Rod Owens is a African-American Buddhist and all in that space and an activist. And his book that he just recently put out is called The New Saints From Broken Hearts to Spiritual Warriors. So that is part of what we will be talking about and all along those lines. So that is part of his message and everything. And as a matter of fact, on another event that it won't be here, it'll be held in another location on December 5th. He'll be talking about opening to the collective inner light in dark times. So one of the quotes that he says is, in these times of great uncertainty and suffering, it can feel challenging to ground yourself into what affords us strength and resilience. So he'll be doing an event. I think that might be here in North Carolina as well, or at another point. We've been doing these conversations. So the one he'll be doing here is with a author by the name of Adrienne Marie Brown. So they'll be having a book talk in conversation. But I was just wondering your thoughts because we do have people that are thinking about that intersectionality that you were talking about. Also, when there are so many people that are hearing like the conflicts going on, I'm thinking about like the Israel-Palestine war, and I think that there are a lot of people that are not hearing the voices of reason coming from both sides and everything. But I'd love to hear your thoughts around that because I'm thinking that there are people that are stuck in their ways, for lack of a better term.
I am known as a radical because I've had the great good fortune of literally being in the mystery schools. So may this be the day where I come out of the closet with Jeanette. Since my late 20s, I've been trained by the ascended masters, both masculine and feminine, which would be the equivalent of like both a Tara and a Babaji as being divine counterparts, or a Christ and a Magdalene being divine counterparts, or a Saint Germain and a Portia being divine counterparts. So in the mystery school lineages, we work with the oversoul. And therefore, the being on the planet called Gautama Buddha, who had his awakening and realization around the Bodhi tree, the true mystic sees no difference between the tree of life that's being honored around Yule and the Buddha having his awakening at the base of the Bodhi tree. It's the world tree. And at the level of the Buddha Maitreya, which is the oversoul, which is the world teacher, then they realized that the same divinity was overriding both Yeshua and Siddhartha. Siddhartha became Buddha and Yeshua became the Christ. So actually both men experienced a transfiguration into that avatar self, and they were being assisted quite significantly by the tree of light or the tree of love, whether you call it the European Anglo-Saxon interpretation or the Asian mystical lotus. The rose line is the Western and the lotus lineage is the Eastern. And these original mystery schools on the planet were absolutely in partnership with each other. And they traveled from the different locations to commune in circles of light. So, truth be told, cat's out of the bag, all the great mystics actually partnered and learned from each other and with each other back in the day. We got to get back to that.
Can you explain what the rose line means again? Because that's something new.
If you look at the frequency of the rose, it's 333 hertz, and that's the highest frequency of any manifestation of nature on the planet. So high frequency flower is the rose. Now in Egypt and in Asia, the roses don't grow there. The lotus flower, though, is that beautiful blossom that rises up out of the bottom of the swamp. And then out of that darkness, this exquisite bloom, right, on the surface of the water. So it's the same principle of transcending negativity or transcending challenge or transcending samsara. And therefore, you'd see like maybe the Christ path is the rose line, and then the Buddhic traditions is the lotus line. And then I'm a hybrid, and we teach and acknowledge that these altars are universal, and it's the lotus rose lineage of Eastern divinity practices and Western divinity practices, and the universal language of love are all vibrating with those parallels, the commonalities of the principles or the core values or the universal virtues for how to go from a regular 3D human state to an awakened human divine.
Yeah, Reverend Divine, just really quickly, one of the things that has been frustrating me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, is how people are stuck in their ways and stuck in their belief systems and don't want to hear other people's attitudes and all along those lines. I think we're seeing a lot of that in the Israel-Palestine conflict, where people are thinking that you have to be totally on the side of Israel and can't have compassion for the Palestinians, which I think is a not correct kind of attitude to have and everything. But I just wondered your thoughts around how some people are stuck in their belief systems, whatever those belief systems may be, and aren't willing to hear other voices or have compassion for different views.
Well, as Jeanette and I have talked about, the ancestral wounds run deep. If you could pull back and see the conflict, just like from a vibrational X-ray vision, you will see the ancestral pain bodies on both sides. There's been pain and loss on both sides of the conflict. And so what people don't realize is there's still an echo or a bleed through or a recapitulation of unfinished business.
Right.
Okay, so the ancestral trauma is what's needing healing, not the ideas. The ancient trauma is what needs that penetration of the light to repair the ravages of war,
Right.
because war creates fear templates. And as Jeanette and I have talked about, particularly, when it was closer to Dia de los Muertos, the more love energy we can carry in our body, the less aggressive, right, will be. Those aggression templates are, you know, um, dissolved and are no longer necessary. So what they're actually attempting to hash out is the resolution of the ancient trauma. But you
Mm,
can't heal the ancient trauma from the same paradigm in which the original trauma was created, which is
no,
the primary illusion of separation.
no.
That person over there is so different that, I'm going to pursue a volatile response.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And really quickly now, turn it back over to Jeanette, and we have still got a few more minutes to go and everything. But I also wonder sometimes about the sloganism, because sometimes people will hear slogans and think that the slogans are being chanted against them. Because I've heard a lot of people that have talked about that river from the sea slant, and even who streets my streets, and a number of other things that are out there. So sometimes I think people that are caught up in the sloganisms and don't necessarily hear the compassion that the people are having, and the reason that maybe they are coming to the aid of people that are equally troubled.
There's an ancient saying that basically says, please look up. Your camera lens, if you're looking down, that's your viewfinder. So what we're talking about literally is like, excuse me, look up. You have to see it from a higher vibratory frequency for that realization to occur. So most people have their head down and they don't know it, that their viewpoint, right, is looking down. And Great Spirit would say, look up. This is the purpose of the universal solstice. The 1212 is the reconciliation of opposites and the inclusion of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, the two pillars becoming one. So that 1212 universal solstice is to teach us, first and foremost, as an entire human species, that we are all divine children of our original divine parents in heaven, quite literally. And that if we are having arguments amongst ourselves, we're like siblings squabbling, okay? And so the 1212 universal solstice is a big reminder, like majorly look up, because you have the primordial divine feminine, primordial divine masculine that knows only love. And it will choose love even in the face of fear, which is bravery and courage and valor. So there's zero separation at the 1212. There's no fear, there's no conflict, there's no duality, there's no polarity. We have not been able to live that in our human relations. So we have forgotten that original state of at oneness. And so every universal solstice on the 1212 stargate, when these portals open, it's like humanity is being asked to remember your origins, that is beyond conflict or beyond separation or beyond competition. We've got to go back to that universal source of love. And Jeanette, says the same thing in her own language. So it's cool to have both of us here, because she reiterates these things in her heart wisdom.
So, what is the significance of December 25th, as that is a day that many people celebrate?
Well, if you remember that metaphor that I gave you, where there was a time on the planet where the earth-based spirituality or the mystics were in harmony and partnership with what you would call the Christian faith, they wanted to have that honorment of Christ's arrival close to the winter solstice because of the complementary parallels of the sun born and the luminous, immaculate presencing of divine universal light on earth. So whether it's the universal divine child of the primordial goddess, which some of our ancestors recognized on Yule tide, or this emanation of that cosmic Christ light, of, Yeshua's arrival to, one of the aspects of the goddess, Isis, Sophia. Okay. She's not Christian. So Mother Mary's not Christian. Okay. And she's the daughter of Isis. She's the daughter of Sophia. She's an embodiment of the Shekinah. Okay. So that's the Jewish mysticism. The Divine Mother's Shekinah, Asherah. You see my point? So the divine masculine that's born of the great divine mother. All the same things with Isis and Horus. So there's documentaries that you will see of all the parallels between Christian mysticism and Egyptian mysticism. It's the same alchemy over and over again. For those that want to see, it's there. So they're attempting to create this harmony of like, how do we get the people to all harmonize? Because they don't all have the same practices. So that's why they put their holidays to get everybody to harmonize. So let's imagine the grand symphony of light seeks harmony. Love seeks harmony and really doesn't care that this practice isn't exactly the same thing as this practice. Are you bringing more love on the planet? Awesome. Great. We're on the same page. It's really that simple. I don't mean to offend some people's, orientations. We love and respect your orientations. It's just open your heart to the inclusion of, there is a feminine Christ, the Christos, the Christas, the Christos Sophia. That's what the Gnostics knew. You see what I'm saying? It's all coming back. The academics have been saying it all along. Now there's the remembrance of these ancient practices for universal harmony, or universal cooperation, and universal respect of diversity, and the principle of inclusion, even when it stretches us.
Yeah. Well, and the Bible even says the greatest of these is love, right? It's so simple to say. It can be very difficult to do, but we live in this world of quote unquote inclusion, but so much of the inclusion and diversity is actually excluding and creating division. And it's like, you do you and let me be me. It's not okay. Everything has to be this way, but you can do you and allow me to be me, and we each celebrate with each other in this expression of love. And that's really what Christmas is about, isn't it?
The return of that divine presence, whatever you call it, as promised. And that it's cultivated, in all the mystery schools, claim the divinity within, the I am that I am. It's pronounced differently in Hebrew. And so, people are staring at me when I'm going to, the Feast Day of Guadalupe services at 5 a.m. They're like, what that gringo doing here? She's not one of us. When they see my body pulsing to the Aztec dancers, they're like, oh, she gets it. At first it was like,
we can do that one of these years.
Debbie, along those same lines, because later on, the day after Christmas, literally this same venue and everything, we will be celebrating Kwanzaa. And I can tell you that while the majority of the crowd may be African American, there are a number of other people from different cultures that come to celebrate. And even Papa Chuck, when he was living, would oftentimes welcome people and talk about that unity aspect of the message as well. So while there are things like collective responsibility and a number of other principles that are a part of Kwanzaa, because there are, I think, about 7 principles total and everything, including unity and definitely collective economics and a number of other things. It is definitely not just strictly a African American society that can enjoy these principles and enjoy what is going on in that space. So Papa Chuck, who passed away several years back, would oftentimes talk about that and the notion of people being unified and celebrating together and all in that space. So it is definitely a very unified group.
And I really deeply appreciate that takes an incredible space of graciousness. That's grace in action when you have the cooperation of different traditions all embracing each other. Now, that is an awakened group of people. And so we can prototype this principle that it is possible. And we hold true to this knowing that eventually these large scale conflicts will dissipate. We don't know how it's going to be resolved. We know the resolution eventually reveals itself because there's the groups on the planet that refuse to go into division. And those groups on the planet that refuse to go in division are basically holding a quantum unified field, right, for the other sections of the population that are still in that forgetting, that we can work out our differences, right, without violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that would be a message from the divine parents, the great goddess, the great God principle. The children work it out, like the parents say to the kids, like, stop your squabbling, okay? Say you're sorry. Can both sides eventually say, I apologize, because both sides, right, did something, that was, raucous, or what it like, it takes two to tango, both kids apologize, and then we grow up. So that's where the planet is evolving, where we transcend, right, in this long-standing warfare.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to mean that you're a peace activist, because people don't necessarily identify. It's like, just because I'm respecting all faiths and traditions doesn't necessarily mean I'm out there as a peace activist, because this is just basic common human decency. It's like, hello, compassion is the universal heart. So I appreciate, like Jeanette's unique practices, like when we did Thanksgiving in the country. I didn't even know that, these apple orchards even existed, even though I live in the mountains. And you see all these families coming from, all over to come and celebrate the beauty of nature, the bounty, from the land. And, you have such a eclectic community that it's absolutely delightful, Mark. So,
Thank you. Yes,
yeah.
definitely. Hang out with eclectic people of all sorts and all different styles and even different political and religious beliefs. I've always felt that that's the best way to live life, is to learn from different people, different backgrounds. Something I might agree with, something I may not agree with, but that can be fun as well. I was joking, I think it might have been with Jeanette last week, and definitely some of my other friends, that we sometimes break the rules in my family because we don't mind talking about the things that they say you're not supposed to talk about at family gatherings, which is namely sports rivalries and politics and religion and a number of other things. But because of coming from a family of what some people would deem to be intellectuals, those conversations come up even at the dinner table. So some of those conversations people would probably be cringing at, but we were going into full force into them and having some of those conversations because we're not a typical family, but sometimes it's good not being typical.
If you're discussing it and learning from each other instead of trying to force your opinion down somebody else's throat, that's the difference. I
Yeah.
have friends that have very different opinions from me, and I like that, because it's like, how am I going to learn? If everybody's like me, first of all, it's boring.
Right.
I mean, I've learned so much from David. There's a lot of knowledge she has that I don't. I surround myself with people that know something that I don't, because that's I want to keep learning. And that's where it gets interesting. And if you have discussions and you learn from each other, then I do truly believe that we all kind of want the same things.
Right.
How you get there may be different path, but I think we all want the same things. So if you talk about, well, there's this path and there's this path. Well, you know what? Maybe there's a path over here that's even better.
Right.
And understanding that, okay, well, there's flaws in each of these different paths. Okay, well, how can we create a better path? Now, sometimes it's over, like, some of the stuff, sports, politics, we don't actually get to create the path. But if we can create a path within each other of saying, yes, this part of what you believe is good and this part of what I believe is good, and wouldn't it be nice if, the people that sit and make these rules could come to the same conclusion, that would be awesome.
One of the interesting things, and I've had some friends that have done it. I've not been bold enough to do it, but there are some people that get triggered, I'll just use that term, by folks that come to them that have a different religious view in all of them. I'm thinking about like the JWs and even the Seventh Day Adventists, but I've had some friends that literally have told me that they have invited them in for dinner and for lunch and for discussion and everything. Not necessarily saying that they were going to change their views, but they just want to
Yeah.
hear their views and all along those lines. So I have not done that as of yet, even though I've had those knocks on my door, even people that have wanted to invite me to more traditional Christian churches as well. But hey, maybe one of these days, if the house is neat enough, which it isn't right now, I'll invite him in and we could have a sit
Like,
down over a glass of tea or something along those lines. But it can actually
The
add to some
principle of
interesting conversation.
curiosity is
yes,
precious.
yes,
The principle of receptivity is precious.
Mhm.
Curiosity, receptivity, and the principle of openness. Again, these are all qualities and characteristics of the divine child. So that's
yes,
what that 1212 Stargate basically says. Remember that you're the divine child, therefore you need or require to defend your position. You don't need to defend your faith. You don't need to pontificate on your right practices. If you are in at one-ment with prime source love, you don't need to impose that on another human being, and can stay in that childlike curiosity, like, oh, how do you play with the divine? It's the
Because
sweetness, the
yeah,
innocence. You see what
yes,
I'm saying? These qualities of willingness to go outside of your known parameters, outside of your wheelhouse, and explore more of the wonders of the great, wide world.
well, it's one of the great mysteries because last time I checked, I mean, there are people that say that they know because they say that they've come back, but until you made that own journey, you can't really say what the other side rush to get there. But whenever I get there, that'll be the answers that'll be known at that time because it's one of those great life mysteries you don't know until the end chapter is written.
true.
What my deepest desire is for what you would call the dissolving and the transmuting of the spiritual ego on the planet that has intolerance.
Hmm.
That assumption, I know better.
Right.
Oh, I have it all figured out. And I get what consciousness really is. And there's zero receptivity to any other vantage point or perspective. Okay, that's an energetic brick wall. And that doesn't serve the awakening of the whole human heart. Okay, because you can't possibly assume that one person's got it all figured out, because that is hubris or that is arrogance. And there's been a lot of quote unquote individuals who assume they're spiritually awake, and yet they're very set in their modalities. And if they don't practice receptivity to other avenues of connecting with source consciousness, okay, then they're not fully awakened. So a little bit of humility goes a long way of like, great, I'm glad that works for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the universal formula for the rest of the human race.
That is very true.
There's different healing techniques, and I've done some, and some of them I walk away and like, well, okay, that felt good for 5 minutes, but it didn't have any lasting effects on me. Other techniques I've used, it's like, whoa, like that was incredibly powerful. And I think that there's a lot of teachers out there of whatever it is we're looking at, and some of them are just kind of like, here you go. If you get a morsel, great. And others are like, I really want to I'm really want to expand you. So it's our job to be open to listen to, okay, teach me what you can. Some person it may just be, okay, I got a kernel. Some person it may be, whoa, you blew my mind. Like, Mark was like, we before you came on, we were talking about, so yeah, you have to keep the water faucet going all the time. Now, here in drought, you're up in the mountains, it's not as bad, but down here, it's like we're in drought. Don't shower, don't,
Mhm.
you only water your lawns for like 5 minutes, and all this stuff. And it's like, you've got your faucet dripping for 24/7, like that goes against everything we've been taught here.
Well, to be clear, it's not always 24/7. It's usually overnight, and the notion is that you are stopping it from the pipe
Even
freezing
still,
on
Freezing.
that space and all along those
That's
lines.
that's a symbol though of, one practice makes sense in this context, and another practice does not make sense in
Yeah.
this context.
right,
So what we're inviting and calling forth as like an awakening principle is embracing the great unknown, even if that constitutes having to exercise curiosity and the humility in the face of a different tradition that may be communing with the universal light current in a different way than you were modeled, taught, right, or conditioned to believe. The prime example of this is Dr. Eben Alexander, the Harvard neurosurgeon who was an atheist, okay, and then had this rare disease and then went into a coma and had the full near death experience and came out the other side and basically said, uh, I'm no longer an atheist because heaven is for real and everything they taught me in medical school is wrong. So when you have people like Dr. Eben Alexander, right, he couldn't even sustain his marriage because his wife couldn't even relate to him. He did a 180, okay, died, 180, came back and was like, oops, sorry, I apologize. I was wrong. That admission of him being off the mark was so threatening that it cost him his marriage.
Yeah.
It didn't cost him his dharma because he is now a Harvard neurosurgeon that basically said, I was blind, but now I see
Mhm.
because I've been to the great beyond. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the more people can have that willingness, would you like to wake up beyond your known reality? If you think you're so awake, would you welcome an even deeper awakening that would, take you into full samadhi? Have you experienced samadhi? You see what I mean? Yeah, you're awake, but have you gone into full samadhi? You see what I mean? There's gradations and there's always more room to grow and expand. There's
Mhm.
no
Yep.
limit
Yeah.
to our capacity to awaken, to communion with the ineffable one source of all that is.
Yeah.
So humanity has a lot of room that it can expand into deeper states of awakened, embodied consciousness. And that's what the winter season of light is about.
Yeah.
It's a personal, intimate communion with that awakening principle.
Yeah.
and on that note, Devi, I want you to give everybody how they can contact with you and a couple of final words, and then we will go to our commercial. And we
Well, I
we
steward the Divine Union Academy for supporting individuals, divineunionacademy.com. When I work with businesses, organizations, couples, and families, that's more the divineunionfoundation.org. I partner with Ancestors Within, so you'll find me on Amazon, author, Ancestors Within, and also Beyond Being Human for ancestral healing. And what I love about this collaboration with Jeanette is I'm all about co-creation and especially the co-participation and the collaboratory between her wisdom and my wisdom and the combined wisdom of being messengers together. So a blessed 12:12 to you all at exactly 12:12 p.m. in Pacific Standard Time Zone for 11 days from now. Woohoo!
yay. And Mark just wrote something, and Mark, it's too small. I can't read it. So if it's something we need to know,
No problem. I'm just going to let y'all know. Well, a couple of things. One, I was just thinking about what you said, because yes, we've had droughts as well. So there are times that we are told the same thing as y'all are, which is to be conservative with the water, because there have been times, even here in North Carolina, that has happened just like it has in California. But this is more of a winter tradition that I was talking about before and everything. But what I was saying is that I actually have two commercials for you, because I have our usual can do spices and everything, but I am part of a talent showcase and all along those lines, and they will be doing an event on the 10th. So I figured we close out with both Can Do Spice and also a little music, because we got an event that is I am part of that'll be on the 10th. That is a talent show where the winners get to go to the world famous Apollo and all in that space. But you'll see what it's
Cool.
all about when
Wow.
that commercial plays right after Can Do Spice. So it's all right with you. I'll go to those 2 commercials right now.
Sounds great.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.
Are you ready? We're talking about the much-anticipated Road to New York National Talent Competition Tour, December 10th at 6 p.m. at the Reedsville High School Auditorium. Brace yourselves for a spectacle of talent, passion, and spirit that is about to take center stage. A show that's set to redefine the meaning of talent, musical tribute to Patti LaBelle and Luther Vandross. Special recognition and award to the legacy of Reedsville football. Special guest, the Jubilant Gospel Singers. And the cast that makes it all happen, the Sandman, the band, the model Deja, Mark Lee TV show host, and Captain Newborn senior producer. Imagine a stage where dreams meet reality, where passion meets performance, and where talent meets opportunity. The Road to New York National Talent Competition Tour to the Apollo. Come out, support and applaud those who dare to dream, encourage the performers who step out of their comfort zones, who embrace their passions, who aren't afraid to show the world what they've got. That's what the Road to New York is all about. The stage is set, the performers are ready, and the countdown has begun. The Road to New York is here. Sunday, December 10th at 6 p.m. at the Reedsville High School Auditorium. Meet the contestants: Skylar Mosley, Tiffany Williams, James Wilson, Christian Hampton, Jada Galloway, Haley Stedman, Haley Dale, Karen Tucker, Jaden Fountain, Elijah Simpson, Andrea Lohman, Cassandra Colmay, Sarita Clay, Rachel Haddock, Damarco Richardson, Patrick Hutchins, Byron Poindexter, and Maya Ann Lees Goslin. Special thanks to all our sponsors: Next Level Veterans, Eden's Own Journal, the City of Reedsville, North Carolina, Reedsville Chamber of Commerce, Pelham Transportation Corporation, Best in Show, Eden Chamber of Commerce, Rockingham County Economic Development, Small Business and Tourism, and the Cutting Room Barber Shop, City of Eden and Rockingham Community College. The Road to New York National Competition Tour has arrived, so buckle up and get ready for a ride of a lifetime. Sunday, December 10th at 6 p.m. at the Reedsville High School Auditorium. Admission, adults $20, students $15. It's an event that promises to leave you inspired. See you there.